Now, is it common for the people who are left behind to call the ME's office to find out what's happening in the case of their deceased person?
I wouldn't say it's common, but it's not uncommon. I mean, I spend a lot of time, most days I was in the office speaking with family members.
Typically that would be whoever did the autopsy would be talking to the person who's calling?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ulmer retired in January of 2023?
Yeah, technically, her last day of work was the end of December of 22.
Okay. And did you receive a call from Kouri Richins then?
I did, subsequent to her retirement.
And did you...
Okay, this is already fascinating. Kouri Richins is personally calling the medical examiner's office. That's not something most people do unless they're desperate for information or trying to shape a narrative. What's your first thought here? Genuine concern or damage control?
Return her call?
I believe I didn't return her call. I believe she was just put on hold and then connected with me.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to listen to a recording of that phone call?
Yes, I'm not sure where it came from either, but yeah.
Is it consistent with your recollection of that phone call?
I did not have any independent recollection of it until I heard it, but yes, it's me on the phone call.
Okay. And have you had a chance to look at the transcript of it?
I have.
Okay. And is that accurate to your...
Yes.
When you listen to the
yes,
tape?
It appears to be.
Okay. State would offer States Exhibit 2-60 and 2-61T.
He indicated he's reviewed it. Certainly we could ask questions. If he needs his recollection refreshed, then I think we could move to admit at that point. But if the state would just
I think the state's admitting it as evidence of defendant's words and statements in the relevant time frame.
I misunderstood. No objection.
And so, okay.
We'd ask permission to publish it then if it's offered and admitted.
So 2-60 is the audio recording, correct?
Correct.
And 2-61T is the transcript.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Those two are admitted. Scott, give me just a moment here, sir. Give that a try.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to listen to this. It's about 9 minutes long, and then I will ask you 3 questions regarding it. Okay. Thank you. Can we advance it 30 seconds?
Right now, okay? Thank you
the
so much.
first 30 seconds
Thank you
is...
so much. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to transfer you right now, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No problem.
I'm not hearing it.
Did we lose it, Scott?
I think so.
All right, no problem. Let's start over. We're getting quicker at this. Scott, if you would disconnect and reconnect on your end, I'll do the same on mine.
And here it is, the star of the infamous call. Watch how casually she opens with just a few questions. That's how most conversations start before they spiral into evidence. Notice the tone, too. Polite, friendly, maybe a bit too friendly.
I'm going to transfer you right now, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No problem.
What's that, Chris?
Hey, this is Kouri Richins. Hey, I just have some quick questions for you. I'm just trying to understand the toxicology report, and I promise I won't take up a ton of your time.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Can you just kind of explain to me, I guess, she was saying that this kind of supplemental report, I guess, was left out of the first autopsy, and so nothing has really changed. Do you have it in front of you?
I do. Yeah, I've got the file here.
Scott, did we drop that again?
Yes.
All right, I apologize, folks. Let's try that again. Scott, if you would disconnect from the system, thank you. Then reconnect, please.
If we do any additional microscope.
I'm going to transfer you right
So much.
Thank you so much. No problem.
Is that Chris?
Hey, this is Kouri Richins. Hey, I just have some quick questions for you. I'm just trying to understand the toxicology report, and I promise I won't take up a ton of your time.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Can you just kind of explain to me, I guess, she was saying that this kind of supplemental report, I guess, was left out of the first autopsy, and so nothing has really changed. Do you have it in front of you?
I do. Yeah, I've got
Okay.
the file here.
So can
So
you...
just so you know, so we issue supplemental reports, like if once the original report's issued, if we do any additional testing, if we do any additional microscopic examination, anything like that, then we include that. You know, we issue a supplemental report to include that additional information. And sometimes it does change the cause or manner, but in this case it didn't.
Okay, it was just like extra testing done?
Extra tox testing, yeah. So originally the testing, the only toxicology testing that was done was on blood. And so then this was additional testing on stomach contents.
Okay, and so is there difference in that, I guess?
Well, they just tell you different things in the sense of, it tells you something about what, was it, is it been there a long time? Is this something the person's been using for a long time?
Okay.
Is it something they ate? Is it something they, injected? Is it, whatever? And there's different things you can learn by looking at different substances. I mean, we fully expected to find it in the stomach. It's just a question of what was there.
So does this tell you, like, if it was, like, injected, if he ate it, if...
Let's pause on that. The doctor just said 15 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl is a lot. People die from half that. This isn't just trace. In court terms, that's damning. The science is basically screaming overdose. But here's the real question. Who administered it and how?
Is that what this... can you tell from this report?
Not definitively. I mean, it seems like, with what the amount that's there, that it probably was ingested. Probably taken by mouth.
Okay, and so the 15 ng, like, is that like a substantial amount? Is that like a trace?
That's a lot. That's a lot of fentanyl in the blood. Yeah, I mean, that's people die with half that amount or less in their system.
Notice how the doctor distinguishes between pharmaceutical and illicit fentanyl. One comes from pharmacies, the other from cartels. This isn't a minor detail. In homicide investigations, that difference often determines whether it's accidental or intentional.
Okay, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's the next one down, the norfentanyl?
It's a metabolite of fentanyl. It's what your body changes fentanyl into after you take it.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. And then, sorry, just the third one, the acetyl. I don't know how you say that.
Acetylfentanyl.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just it's a form of, it's a variant of fentanyl that is usually only present in the setting of illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
Illicit manufactured, like a pharmacy?
No. Most fentanyl that we see that ends up leading people to die these days is related to fentanyl that's manufactured by drug cartels as opposed to by pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, good Lord. So this is like more of like a cartel. No, I mean, that's not what it is. But
You call this the street fentanyl as opposed to hospital
prescription.
fentanyl.
Okay, I see. And then is the ethanol, is that alcohol?
That's alcohol.
Okay, and is that like the 279? Is that kind of like a substantial amount, or is that like one drink? Is that
Well,
5 drinks?
You can't tell how much it is, and in this case, since this testing was sent, quite a long time after the original autopsy, most likely that's related to, postmortem change, but it could be stuff that he drank. There's not really a way to sort that out. It could be related to decomposition of the stomach contents, or it could be related to stuff he drank. But either way, in the stomach contents, there's no way to know what that level means in terms of, if that was a blood level, that would be the same as a 0.28, which would be, that person would be pretty substantially intoxicated. But because it's gastric contents, you could in theory pull something out and it would be, 100% ethanol, if, depending on if they just drank a stomach full of, if they just drank a bunch of Everclear or something else. So it doesn't really tell you much about how much they drank or what they drank or anything like that.
I
When
gotcha.
it's in the stomach. And it's not present in his blood, so.
I gotcha. Okay. So it's not present in the blood, just the gastric or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just the last one. What is quetiapine? Quetiapine?
Quetiapine is an antipsychotic medication. It's called Seroquel.
Okay. I gotcha.
It's a prescription mental health medication that's prescribed for different things.
I gotcha. Okay. And it has like 16,000?
16,000 nanograms per milliliter. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that, quite a bit? Like, can that...
That's a big number, but it doesn't really mean that much. So a nanogram is a millionth of a gram, and a gram is not very big. So even 16,000 of them is not a huge amount.
Okay. Is there could those have been mixed, or is that not kind of a...
What's that? Could what be mixed?
Quetiapine and the fentanyl? Or is that a normal, I guess, drug thing? I don't know.
It's not, most of the time if we see those together, it's because somebody was taking quetiapine as a prescribed medication and they were abusing fentanyl. But, do you have any indication he was abusing fentanyl?
No, that's why all of this is just what the heck is this and going on? So I guess that's why I'm confused just about all of this, honestly. So I don't know. So, I know it doesn't mean anything now, but just kind of something for me to, try and figure out, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming the acetopin, is that like a aspirin or something?
Acetaminophen, that's just fentanyl. Yeah.
Oh, that's fentanyl too?
Did you catch that tone shift? When the doctor calmly says, "We still don't know how he got into him," that's a chilling moment. Because in court, unknown cause doesn't mean no one's responsible. It means the method is hidden. What do you think? Ingestion, injection, or setup?
No, that's Tylenol.
Oh, Tylenol. I was like, holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So just Tylenol, caffeine, and then the naloxone, I'm assuming, is just something that they gave him while he was here?
Probably would be my guess. It'd be, somebody that's unresponsive. It's a very common thing for EMS to give people.
Okay. Okay, no, that works. I was just trying to figure out, if this is anything different, if we found out anything new with this stuff.
Oh, come on.
Pause there. It's okay. We can fix it. Scott, don't change anything.
Okay.
It seems like if I do this, press play again.
Yeah, like she said, it doesn't change anything in the cause or manner of death. It's still, definitely, death from fentanyl intoxication, and we still don't know how he got it into him.
Yeah, and is that anything you could ever find out if it was? Do people normally eat that? Take it? Is that something you shoot?
It's not usually something people eat. Well, that's not even true anymore. So with illicitly manufactured stuff, sometimes people take pills. that have that. So yeah, these days you can't really tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I do. Thank you very much. And
Yep. And if you have other questions, don't hesitate to give me a call.
okay, awesome. What was your name?
Dr. Christensen.
Oh, Christensen. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep,
bye-bye.
You're welcome. Yep.
I'd like to follow up on a couple things there. You mentioned to her about if the gastric contents were blood, it would be 0.28
Yes.
blood alcohol, but it's, in fact, not in the blood. It's in the gastric, and so there's no way of conveniently figuring out how much it is, much less its source.
That's correct.
Are you okay? Do you need a glass of water?
I've got water. I'm good.
Okay. You mentioned in that call, at first you said, we typically don't see it eaten, but you can't say that anymore. Could you expound upon that? How, in cases where there's pills, is it common to see them eaten?
So, yeah, okay. A few things about that. So over time, I'd say the last 20 years, we saw a rather dramatic change in the deaths we saw related to fentanyl. Until the early 20-teens, pretty much all fentanyl deaths were related to prescription fentanyl being used incorrectly, most commonly by healthcare providers and other people who would, have access to it and would abuse it. And it was just not a common thing. We just didn't see a lot of deaths related to that. Once patches became available, which were designed, primarily for, treating cancer patients with bad pain and things of that nature, people became creative with how they used those patches as well. Some people would, put on multiple patches, or they would put on patches and a heating pad to sort of drive it into their system more quickly. Seen people that would smoke them, people that would insert them into their rectum, people that would chew them up. Sometimes we'd find, multiple chewed up patches in the stomach, and certainly other ways have been described as well with patches. But once the illicit drug supply and primarily the heroin supply came to be, either augmented and or replaced by fentanyl, we saw, we saw much less in the way of the, prescription abuse and much more of the illicit stuff being used. And some of that was in the form of what was heroin. Most heroin in this area was black tar heroin, which then became ended up having fentanyl within it. So people that had been heroin users would still be using what they thought was heroin, and it would have fentanyl in it, many times mixed with heroin. Eventually, some cases was not mixed at all, but was just straight fentanyl. Counterfeit fentanyl pills, or counterfeit oxycodone pills. Fentanyl in pill form, made to look like it was an oxycodone pill, also became a fairly common thing. And as we discussed before with other pills, people will abuse those in different ways. Sometimes they can ingest them directly, but they can also grind them up and inject them or smoke them. So they can be used in all kinds of different ways. But in the phone call, what I'm referring to, we mostly did not see anybody eating fentanyl before illicit fentanyl. With the advent of these counterfeit pills, we saw it somewhat, more often, or would assume that was the route. But we, even then, most of the time don't know how somebody gets the fentanyl into them, even if they have it on their person.
In this case, there certainly wasn't any injection sites noted.
No.
Are there tests, forensic tools?
Here's where it gets deep. The doctor introduces a fentanyl to norfentanyl ratio, a forensic trick to tell whether the victim was a chronic user or not. In this case, for 0.6, smack in the middle. Not enough to prove addiction, but not clean enough to rule it out. Classic reasonable doubt territory.
That could aid in the determination of whether one is a chronic or habitual or a naive user?
It's a good question. So there's been a lot published on the assessment of fentanyl levels in people that have died, and ways that you can try and parse some of those things out. The bottom line for all of them is you can't look at a number in isolation and make a determination based on, this is a lethal level, so this level has to be the cause of their death. There are certainly people who become tolerant. Most opioids, people will develop tolerance over time, and so they can have very, very high levels and not have the same effect as someone who doesn't take it all the time. We had no history in this case in particular to suggest long-term chronic use, but also didn't know. And there are things that could potentially be looked at to try and assess longer-term use. The only published data I've seen around that revolves around comparing the fentanyl to the norfentanyl level, and levels where that ratio is more than 8 are believed to be consistent with an acute intoxication. Ratios of 2.5 or less are consistent with chronic use. In this case, that ratio is about 4.6, so it's right in between, so it doesn't really provide us helpful information either way.
That's the ratio between fentanyl and its metabolite.
Correct.
As you find it.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of pseudo-allergic reaction to opioids?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury a little bit about that?
Sure. Most allergic reactions are because the body has developed an immune response to some specific protein substance, whether it's nuts or grasses or whatever, pollens of different types, and your body reacts to that and triggers a reaction through your immune system that elicits what we typically think of as allergy symptoms that can range everywhere from, stuffy head all the way up to anaphylaxis and death. In the setting of opiates do not elicit a true allergic response, but there are many people that take opiates who have an allergic-like reaction, but it's because the drugs themselves are directly triggering those cells that cause those symptoms as opposed to going through the immune system route. And so some people will, that chronically take opiates and opioids for pain, will pre-medicate or medicate around the same time with things like Benadryl and other things to minimize those symptoms because they know they have that reaction. Certainly most people that take them do not have that reaction, but some do. And that's
if one didn't know and one took some opiate, could they have hives and those sorts of allergic-like responses?
Yes.
Given all the symptoms that you talked about, the lungs, the edema, and the data from NMS labs, do you have any concern about the cause of death in this particular case?
No.
And the 15 nanograms, as you explained to Kouri Richins, was a lot.
Yes, it's well within the range of levels that we see in people that die from fentanyl.
Do you remember when that phone call took place?
Do I remember what?
When that phone call took place?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay. Does your office take notes when you receive calls and reply to calls, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
That changed a little bit over the time I was there. It used to be we'd get a little scrap of paper with a note written on it, return this call. We turned that into a digital log before I retired, but yes.
Would it help to look at one of those notes to refresh your recollection as to when the call took place?
Sure.
May I approach the witness?
Of course.
No, I better show it. I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is from the log just said that an incoming call came to me from Kouri Richins, and she had questions, and that this is my notes
And so, what day did that phone call?
on
take
January 12th of 2023, a couple
Thank-
weeks after Dr. Ulmer's retirement.
Thank you. That's all I